She took out 94 targets, her final mistake. Going after a human single mom, Part 1. The Predator's perfect record commander Vexara had never missed a target. Not once in her 15-year career as the galaxy's most feared assassin. Exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights of her ship's war room as she studied.
Oh.
The holographic display floating before her. 94 confirmed kills. Each one a masterpiece of precision and brutality. War generals, crime lords, rebel leaders, politicians who had outlived their usefulness. All had fallen to her twin plasma blades and enhanced reflexes. The Dominion Empire paid her well for her services. She had earned every credit through blood and terror. The new contract file materialized in the air, casting blue light across her predatory features. Target designation, Rebecca Martinez. Human female, age 32. The image showed an ordinary woman with gentle eyes and auburn hair, wearing the simple coveralls of a maintenance worker. Pathetic Vexara hissed through her mandibles. According to the file, Rebecca Martinez was nothing more than a single mother, living on the mining colony of Titan's Edge, working as a systems engineer. No military background, no political CLC connections, no apparent reason to die. Yet the payment offered was astronomically enough to fund her retirement to the pleasure moons of Andromeda. The client remained anonymous, hidden behind layers of encrypted communications that even her ship's advanced AI couldn't penetrate. Her clawed fingers traced the holographic image. "What makes you so special, little human?" The ship's navigation system chimed. Titan's Edge was 3 hyperspace jumps away. Within 48 hours, Rebecca Martinez would be corpse number 95, and Vexara would be rich beyond measure. Her vessel slipped into hyperspace, streaks of light painting the cosmos in brilliant white. The assassin began planning her approach. Quick, clean, efficient, she had killed humans before fragile creatures with their soft skin and limited lifespans. This would be the easiest contract of her career. She had no way of knowing that she was about to face the most dangerous predator in the known universe, a human mother protecting her child. Part 2. The quiet storm. Rebecca Martinez pressed her palm against the massive fusion reactor's control panel, feeling the steady thrum of power that kept Titan's Edge alive. The mining colony floated in the void between stars, a testament to human determination to find resources anywhere in the galaxy. For 3 years, she had maintained these systems, ensuring that 15,000 souls could breathe, eat, and survive in the endless dark. "Mom, can I see the reactor core?" 10-year-old Jake bounced beside her, his eyes bright with curiosity. Her son had inherited his father's love of machinery and her own stubborn streak, a combination that both thrilled and terrified her. "From the observation deck only," Rebecca said, ruffling his dark hair, "and stay close. The radiation shielding doesn't extend to the maintenance corridors." As they climbed the service ladder to the viewing platform, Rebecca's mind wandered to the strange messages she'd been receiving. Anonymous offers to purchase her research data. Inquiries about her work schedule from people who claimed to be old friends but used names she didn't recognize. The feeling of being watched during her off-duty hours. Her husband Michael had been the paranoid one, always checking locks and looking over his shoulder. She'd thought it was leftover trauma from his military service. Now, 3 years after the mining accident that claimed his life, she was beginning to understand his caution. The cum unit on her belt crackled to life. "Rebecca, this is Colony Administrator Hayes. I need to speak with you immediately. It's about Jake." Her blood turned to ice. Jake was right beside her. What could Hayes possibly need to discuss? "What about my son? There's been an incident at the school. Nothing serious, but we need you to come down to the administrative level. Jake should probably stay with the Hendersons tonight." Rebecca's training kicked in. Makala had drilled her on security protocols, made her memorize the signs of danger. This was wrong. All wrong. "What kind of incident?" "I'd rather discuss it in person. How soon can you?" She cut the transmission and grabbed Jake's hand. "We're leaving now." "But Mom, you said we could watch the plasma conduit's new plan?" Rebecca's voice carried a calm authority that made Jake stop arguing. She activated her emergency beacon and began moving toward the service tunnels. Remember the games Dad used to play with you? The hiding games? Jake's face grew serious. At 10, he was old enough to understand when his mother was scared. Are we playing now? Yes, and the most important rule is to stay quiet and do exactly what I say. Through the reactor chamber's observation windows, Rebecca caught sight of a figure in dark clothing moving through the main corridor. The way it moved was wrong, too fluid, too controlled. Not human. Whatever was hunting them had found their scent. # Part 3. The hunter becomes hunted. Vexara stalked through the mining colony's corridors with predatory grace, her enhanced senses mapping every heartbeat, every breath, every whisper of movement. The station's crude security systems had been child's play to infiltrate. Now she was inside, and her prey was trapped. According to her scans, Rebecca Martinez was in the reactor section with her offspring. The anonymous client had specified that both targets were to be eliminated, the mother for her knowledge, the child to prevent future complications. Xara had no qualms about killing younglings. Mercy was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her thermal imaging showed to heat signatures moving through the maintenance tunnels. Clever. The human was using the station's infrastructure to her advantage. But Vexara had hunted prey in environments far more challenging than this industrial maze. She activated her cloaking field and began her pursuit. The tunnels were cramped and poorly lit, forcing her to move more slowly than she preferred. But patience was a virtue in her profession. She had once stalked a rebel commander through the swamps of Kepler 7 for 18 days before making her kill. This would be over much sooner. A sound echoed from a head metal scraping against metal. Vexara smiled, her mandibles clicking in anticipation. The human was making mistakes, leaving a trail even a novice could follow. She rounded a corner and found herself face to face with a jury-rigged explosive device.
8.
The plasma charge detonated before she could react, filling the tunnel with superheated gas and shrapnel. Her exoskeleton protected her from the worst of the blast, but the concussion sent her sprawling. "You're trespassing on my station," came a voice from speakers hidden in the tunnel walls. Rebecca Martinez had tapped into the colony's communication system. "I've called security. Leave now, and I won't have to kill you." Vexara picked herself up, her armor smoking but intact. Impressive trap, human. But I have killed warriors who trained their entire lives for combat. You are merely a maintenance worker. "I'm a mother," Rebecca replied, her voice echoing from multiple directions, "and you've just threatened my son." The tunnel lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in hellish red. Vexara's night vision adapted instantly. But she realized with growing unease that the human had more surprises waiting. From somewhere in the darkness came a new sound, the high-pitched whine of a fusion cutter charging up. The human was armed. She knew the station's layout better than any schematic could reveal. For the first time in her career, Vexara felt something she hadn't experienced since her first kill. Uncertainty. # Part 4. A Mother's Wrath. In the blood-red emergency lighting of the maintenance tunnels, Rebecca Martinez moved like a ghost through corridors she had walked 1,000 times. Every pipe, every junction, every access panel was burned into her memory from 3 years of keeping this station alive. Jake was safe in the sealed emergency shelter near the reactor core bunker designed to protect technicians from radiation. Leaks. The alien assassin would never find him there. Rebecca could focus on the immediate threat. She had never killed before. The fusion cutter in her hands was designed to slice through metal bulkheads, not living tissue. But as she thought about Jake cowering in that shelter, afraid and alone, something primal awakened in her chest. A fury that transcended species, transcended civilization itself. "You made a mistake coming here," she spoke into her unit, her voice broadcasting through the tunnel's speaker system. "This is my home, my territory, my son." The alien's response came from close. "Bite it close. Your emotional attachments make you weak, human. I have eliminated targets who cared for nothing but their own survival. You fight for another, which means you will make errors." Rebecca smiled grimly. The alien understood tactics and training, but she had no concept of what drove a human mother. You're right. Do fight for someone else. That's what makes me dangerous. She triggered the atmospheric controls, flooding the tunnel section with inert gas. The alien's breathing apparatus would filter out toxins, but the sudden change in air pressure would interfere with her enhanced senses. Through the haze, Rebecca saw the shimmer of a cloaking field. She raised the fusion cutter and fired. Beams sliced through the air where she estimated the alien's torso would be. She was rewarded with a shriek of pain and the sound of something heavy hitting the tunnel wall. The cloaking field flickered and died. Vexara stood 15 feet away, her left arm hanging useless at her side. Dark blood seeping through cracks in her exoskeleton. You cannot hide forever, the assassin snarled, raising her own weapon, a sleek energy rifle that hummed with lethal potential. Have backup systems, redundant organs, enhanced reflexes. You are only human. Only human. Rebecca stepped out of the shadows, her fusion cutter glowing white-hot. You have no idea what that means. They faced each other across the narrow tunnel, predator and prey, hunter and mother, but as Rebecca looked into the alien's compound, she saw something that gave her hope. Fear. For the first time in her career. Vexara was facing an opponent who had nothing left to lose except what mattered most. Part 5. The final lesson. The standoff lasted 3 seconds. Then both warriors moved at once. Vexara's energy rifle spat coherent light. But Rebecca was already diving behind a coolant pipe. The beam scorched the tunnel wall where she had been standing, leaving a smoking crater in the metal. She rolled to her feet and triggered the fusion cutter, sending a lance of superheated plasma toward the assassin. Vexara's enhanced reflexes saved her life. She twisted away from the beam, but not quickly enough. The plasma seared across her shoulder, melting through her exoskeleton like butter. She screamed, a sound like breaking glass and tearing metal. You feel that? Rebecca advanced, her weapon steady in her hands. That's pain. That's what you were going to do to my son. The alien tried to bring her rifle to bear, but Rebecca was faster. She had studied the reactor schematics for 3 years, knew every weakness in the station structure. The fusion cutter's beams sliced through the primary support strut above Vexara's head. 2 tons of metal and machinery crashed down. The assassin's reflexes were superhuman, but physics was physics. She managed to avoid being crushed, but the impact sent her sprawling across the tunnel floor. Her rifle skittered away into the darkness. Rebecca stood over the fallen predator, her weapon trained on the alien's head. 94 kills. That's your record, right? You want to know what mine is? Vexara's mandibles clicked weakly. What? 0. I've never killed anything in my life, never even hurt another living being. Rebecca's voice was steady, but her hands shook with adrenaline. But you threatened my son. You came to my home, my territory, and you threatened the most important thing in my universe. Then do it, Vexara whispered. Complete your first kill. Rebecca looked down at the broken assassin. The fury that had driven her was still there, but it was tempered now by something else. Understanding. No, you're going to live with this. You're going to remember the day you learned that some bonds are stronger than any weapon. She reached for her cum unit and opened a channel to colony security. This is Rebecca Martinez. I have an intruder in custody in Maintenance Tunnel 7. She needs medical attention. As security teams rushed to their location, Vexara stared up at the human who had defeated her. Why? Why spare me? Rebecca knelt beside the alien, her anger replaced by something resembling pity. Because that's what makes us human. We protect what we love, but we don't become monsters doing it. The last thing Vexara saw before the medical team sedated her was Rebecca Martinez walking away, heading back to reunite with her son. The galaxy's most feared assassin had been defeated not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by something no weapon could measure: a mother's love. Later, as Rebecca held Jake in the safety of their quarters, she reflected on the night's events. The anonymous client, whoever they were, had wanted her dead for her fusion reactor designs. They had sent the best killer money could buy, but they had made one fatal miscalculation. They had threatened her son, and there was no force in the universe more dangerous than a human mother protecting her child. Hashash Epilogue 6 months later. Vexara sat in her cell on the maximum security prison station, orbiting Proxima Centauri. Her injuries had healed, but the psychological wounds remained. She had been the perfect predator, feared across 1,000 worlds. Now she was infamous for a different reason. She was the assassin who had been defeated by a single mother with a maintenance tool. The other inmates gave her a wide berth, but not out of fear. It was pity. The mighty Vexara, reduced to a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating human parents. She had received one message during her imprisonment. From Rebecca Martinez. I hope you learned something that night. I hope you understand now that some things are worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth living for. My son asked me to tell you that he hopes you find something that matters to you as much as he matters to me. Children see the world differently than we do. They still believe in redemption. I hope someday you prove him right. Vexara read the message every day, trying to understand what had happened to her in those tunnels. She had lost more than a fight. She had lost her certainty about what made someone truly dangerous. The human had been right. There was no force in the universe more formidable than a mother protecting her child. It was a lesson written in blood and courage, taught by a woman who had never killed before and hoped she never would again, but would kill to protect what mattered most. Rebecca Martinez had saved her son, spared her enemy, and changed the fate of the galaxy's most feared assassin, all in a night's work for a human mother. The Crimson Death glided through the void between stars, her sleek vessel cutting through hyperspace like a blade through silk. Commander Vexara flexed her razor-sharp claws as she reviewed the holographic display that had made her legendary across 17 star systems. 94 kills, 94 perfect executions. Not a single failure in 15 years of professional murder. Think about that for a moment. 15 years without missing once? Your local pizza delivery guy probably has a worse success rate than this alien killing machine. But here's where it gets interesting. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this part. The war room of her ship pulsed with the steady rhythm of advanced technology. Walls lined with weapons that could level entire cities. Navigation systems that could plot courses through black holes. Medical equipment that could repair almost any injury. This wasn't just a spaceship. It was a mobile fortress of death. Custom-built, for one purpose, making people disappear. Vexara's crimson exoskeleton caught the harsh blue light as she scrolled through her greatest hits. There was General Korath, the 3-star commander who had united the rebel fleets of the Outer Rim. She'd eliminated him during his own victory celebration, walking right through his security detail like they were children playing dress-up. The blast from her plasma blades had vaporized him before he could even draw his ceremonial sword. Then there was Crime Lord Vicious, who had controlled the spice trade across 12 systems. He'd hired an army of bodyguards, installed the most advanced security money could buy, and holed up in a fortress that was supposed to be impenetrable. Vexara had infiltrated it by disguising herself as a maintenance droid. By the time Vicious realized his cleaning staff had been replaced by a professional assassin, he was already bleeding out on his marble floor. The list went on. Politicians who had crossed the wrong people, military leaders who had become too popular, business executives who had refused to play ball with the Dominion Empire. Each name represented a life ended with surgical precision, a reputation built on fear and respect. But wait, because here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The new contract file materialized in the air with a soft chime, casting blue light across her predatory features. Target designation: Rebecca Martinez, human female, age 32. The holographic image showed an ordinary woman with kind eyes and auburn, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore the simple gray coveralls of a maintenance worker, tool belt hanging at her waist, grease stains on her fingers from honest work. Vexara's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among her species. Pathetic, she hissed, her voice carrying the sibilant accent that had become the last sound so many victims heard. According to the file, Rebecca Martinez was nothing special. single mother living on the mining colony of Titan's Edge, working. As a systems engineer, no military training, no political connections, no bodyguards or security detail. She lived in a modest apartment with her 10-year-old son, took the transport to work every morning, and spent her evenings helping with homework and reading bedtime stories. So why was someone willing to pay enough credits to buy a small moon for her death? The payment notification flashed across her screen, and even Vexara's enhanced nervous system registered shock. The amount was astronomical, more than she'd earned from her last 10 contracts combined. Enough to fund her retirement to the pleasure moons of Andromeda, where she could spend her remaining years in luxury and comfort. Her clawed fingers danced across the holographic controls, trying to trace the source of the contract, but the client remained anonymous, hidden behind layers of encryption that even her ship's military-grade AI couldn't penetrate. Someone very powerful wanted Rebecca Martinez dead, and they were willing to pay a fortune to make it happen. "Makes you so special, little human," Vexara murmured, studying the woman's face. There was something in those eyes of quiet strength that reminded her of prey animals who had learned to survive in predator territory. But that was impossible. Humans were soft, emotional creatures who broke easily under pressure. The ship's navigation system chimed, displaying the route to Titan's Edge. 3 hyperspace jumps through the galaxy's major shipping lanes. 48 hours of travel time? By the end of the week, Rebecca Martinez would be corpse number 9-5. And Vexara would be the richest assassin in known space. She began her pre-mission ritual, checking and rechecking her equipment. Twin plasma blades that could cut through starship hull plating, cloaking device that rendered her invisible to most sensors. Neural disruptors that could scramble a target's nervous system. Molecular acids that could dissolve locks, walls, or bones with equal efficiency. But honestly, she probably wouldn't need any of it. This was a maintenance worker on a mining colony. The most dangerous thing Rebecca Martinez had probably ever handled was a faulty fusion reactor. As her vessel slipped into hyperspace, reality blurred into streaks of brilliant white light. The universe compressed around them, space and time. Bending to accommodate their passage between distant stars, Vexara settled into her command chair and began planning her approach. Quick, clean, efficient. That was her signature style. No unnecessary suffering, no dramatic speeches, no elaborate death traps. Just a professional doing her job with cold precision. She had killed humans before, fragile creatures with their soft skin and limited lifespans. They broke so easily compared to the warrior races of the galaxy. A single strike from her plasma blades could cut through human bone like paper. Their emotional attachments made them predictable. Their need for sleep and food made them vulnerable. This would be the easiest contract of her career. A simple execution on a backwater mining colony. Rebecca Martinez would never even see her coming. But here's the thing about making assumptions. Here's the thing about underestimating your target. Here's the thing about thinking you know everything about a species. It's because you've killed a few of them. Vexara had no way of knowing that she was about to face the most dangerous predator. In the known universe, she had no idea that she was flying toward a confrontation that would shatter her perfect record and teach her a lesson about the true meaning of survival. She was about to learn that some bonds are stronger than any weapon, that some instincts run deeper than any training, some forces in the universe are more powerful than enhanced reflexes and alien technology. She was about to discover what happens when you threaten a human mother's child, and that lesson was going to hurt. Speaking of powerful forces, if you want to understand how small actions can create massive results over time, check out our next video about the incredible power of compounding. Trust me, after seeing how one mother's determination can change everything, you'll want to know how this principle can transform your own life. The moment of truth had arrived. Vexara's ship touched down on the rocky surface of Titan's Edge, like a whisper in the dark. No fanfare, no dramatic entrance, just a predator arriving to claim her prey. The mining colony's lights twinkled in the distance, oblivious to the death that had just landed on their doorstep. You know what they say about confidence, right? It's the feeling you have right before you fully understand the situation, Vexara. Moved through the colony's outer perimeter with the fluid grace of a creature born to kill. Her thermal sensors painted the world in shades of red and blue, mapping every heat signature within a quarter-mile radius. Two targets glowed bright in the hydroponics facility: Rebecca Martinez and her son, Jake. The anonymous client had been very specific about this part. Both targets were to be eliminated. No witnesses, no loose ends, no survivors. The facility itself was laughably vulnerable. Humans had this adorable habit of building things for convenience rather than security. Multiple entry points, transparent aluminum walls that might as well have been made of paper, and security systems designed to keep out curious animals rather than professional killers. The entire structure was a testament to human optimism, the belief that bad things happen to other people. In other places, how wrong they were about to be, she activated her cloaking field and approached the main entrance. The electromagnetic distortion field wrapped around her like a second skin, bending light and sound until she was essentially invisible to human senses. Her biomechanical implants interfaced with the door's electronic lock, analyzing its pathetic security protocols. In milliseconds, seriously, the lock was so primitive that her ship's coffee maker probably had better encryption. The door slid open with a barely audible hiss, and Vexera stepped into another world. The warm, humid air of the greenhouse enveloped her like a living thing, carrying the scent of growing plants and recycled atmosphere. Rows of green vegetation stretched out before her, their leaves rustling in the artificial breeze generated by the facility's climate control system. This was where humans grew their food, where they nurtured life from dead soil and artificial light. It was almost poetic that it would become the place where two human lives ended. Her enhanced senses cataloged every detail: soft drip of water from irrigation systems, the gentle hum of grow lights suspended from the ceiling, the steady thrum of air recyclers maintaining the perfect balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and underneath it all, the rapid heartbeat of fear. "I know you're here." The voice came from deeper in the facility, calm and steady despite the situation. Rebecca Martinez stepped into view between the rows of tomato plants, her hands empty but her posture alert. There was something in her stance that gave Vexera pause, not the cowering terror she expected, but the careful balance of someone ready to move. "What do you want?" Vexera deactivated her cloaking field, her scales shifting to a darker crimson A, biological response that signaled aggression in her species. The effect was immediate and terrifying. One moment the human was alone, the next, she was facing 7 feet of armored predator with claws that could shred steel. "Rebecca Martinez," Vexera said, her voice carrying the sibilant accent that had become the last sound so many victims heard. "Your termination has been contracted." Nothing personal. But here's where things got interesting. Here's where Rebecca Martinez proved that humans were capable of surprising even the galaxy's most experienced killer. "Everything's personal when you threaten my family," Rebecca replied, her voice steady despite the biochemical markers of fear that Vexera's enhanced senses detected. Elevated heart rate, increased adrenaline production, the subtle shift in pheromones that indicated a mammal preparing for fight or flight. "Who sent you?" "Questions are irrelevant," Vexera said, raising her plasma rifle. The weapon's barrel began to glow with contained energy, building toward a discharge that would vaporize human tissue in microseconds. "Your death is inevitable. Where is the child?" "Far from here." The lie was obvious to Vexera's enhanced senses, but she had to admire the human's commitment to protecting her offspring. Maternal instincts were predictable across most species, but they also made targets desperate and therefore dangerous. "Lying will only prolong your suffering," Vexera warned. Rebecca's hand moved to her belt. Vexera's finger tightened on the trigger. But instead of a weapon, the human pulled out a small device-modified emergency beacon that had been jury-rigged with additional components. She pressed it, and the entire facility exploded into chaos. Every sprinkler system activated simultaneously. Every irrigation line opened at maximum pressure. Every water reservoir in the complex dumped its contents into the greenhouse. Within seconds, the carefully controlled environment became a deluge of water and steam that interfered with Vexera's thermal imaging and electronic systems. The human had vanished. "Wait, what?" A simple maintenance worker had just outmaneuvered the galaxy's most feared assassin. Clever, but futile. Vexera snarled, her enhanced vision compensating for the water-distorted air. She began stalking through the maze of vegetation, her weapon sweeping back and forth as she searched for her prey. "I have eliminated trained soldiers, Martinez. You are merely a farmer." "I'm a mother," came the reply from somewhere in the dripping darkness. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, bouncing off the greenhouse walls and filtered through the sound of cascading water. "And you just made the biggest mistake of your life." The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in hellish red shadows. Vexera's night vision automatically compensated, but she realized with growing unease that the human had more tricks than anticipated. This wasn't going to be the quick, clean execution she'd planned. The facility had become a maze of shadows and steam, with Rebecca Martinez somewhere in the darkness, preparing to teach the galaxy's most feared assassin a lesson about human mothers and the lengths they would go to protect their children. But here's the thing about lessons sometimes. The teacher learns more than the student. Sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. Sometimes a simple maintenance worker with a tool belt and a desperate love for her child can change the entire course of galactic history. Rebecca Martinez was about to prove that some bonds are stronger than any weapon, some instincts run deeper than any training, and some forces in the universe are more powerful than enhanced reflexes and alien technology. And if you think that's impressive, wait until you see what happens when small actions compound over time. Just like Rebecca's simple preparation saved her life, your daily choices can create massive results. Check out our next video about the incredible power of compounding. To see how this principle can transform your entire future, the predator had become the prey, and she didn't even know it yet. Vexera glided through the mining colony's corridors like liquid death, her enhanced senses painting a three-dimensional map of everything around her. Every heartbeat within 100 meters registered on her bioscanners. Every breath, every whisper of movement, every drop of sweat falling from terrified human skin, all it fed into her predatory awareness. The station's security systems had been laughably easy to infiltrate. Humans had this charming habit of protecting their colonies like they were still living in peaceful suburbs back on Earth. Motion sensors designed to detect maintenance robots, not professional assassins. Cameras that recorded invisible light, spectrum, useless against her cloaking technology. Access codes that any child with a basic neural interface could crack. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where Rebecca Martinez was about to teach the galaxy's most feared killer a lesson about home field advantage according to her thermal scans. Rebecca and her son Jake were holed up in the reactor section, deep in the station's mechanical heart. The anonymous client had been crystal clear about the contract terms. Both targets were to be eliminated. The mother for her knowledge, the child to prevent future complications. Clean slate, no witnesses, no loose ends. Vexera had no qualms about killing children. In her 15 years as a professional assassin, she had learned that mercy was a luxury that got you killed. Emotions were weakness. Hesitation was death. The universe was full of predators, and only the strongest survived. Or so she thought. Her thermal imaging showed 2 heat signatures moving through the maintenance tunnels that snaked through the station like arteries. Clever move. The human was using the station's infrastructure to her advantage, staying away from the main corridors where Vexera's superior speed and reflexes would give her an overwhelming advantage. But Vexera had hunted prey in environments far more challenging than this industrial maze. She had tracked a rebel commander through the acid swamps of Kepler 7 for 18 days, living on nothing but filtered water and protein paste. She had eliminated a crime boss in the zero-gravity shipyards of Proxima Station, using the microgravity to her advantage as she moved through the construction. Framework like a spider, this would be over much sooner. She activated her cloaking field and began her pursuit, her form shimmering and disappearing as the electromagnetic distortion wrapped around her. The maintenance tunnels were cramped and poorly lit, forcing her to move more slowly than she preferred. But patience was a virtue in her profession. Good things came to those who waited, especially when those good things involved large payments. And permanent solutions to corporate problems, the tunnels reeked of machine oil and recycled air, their walls lined with pipes and conduits that carried the lifeblood of the colony. Power cables, water lines, atmospheric processors, communication, arrays. All of it maintained by people like Rebecca Martinez, who spent their lives crawling through these forgotten spaces to keep civilization running. People who knew every inch of these tunnels better than their own living rooms. A sound echoed from a head metal scraping against metal. Its mandibles clicked in anticipation. The human was making mistakes, leaving a trail that even a novice hunter could follow. Desperation led to sloppy technique. Fear led to poor decisions. She rounded a corner and found herself face to face with something that made her enhanced. Reflexes scream in alarm, a jury-rigged explosive device. Cobbled together from spare parts and maintenance supplies, plasma conduits rerouted through a makeshift detonator. Chemical compounds that any systems engineer would have access to, the kind of improvised weapon that someone with intimate knowledge of the station's infrastructure could build in minutes. The device detonated before she could react. The tunnel filled with superheated gas and shrapnel, a miniature sun that turned the cramped space into a hellscape of flame and flying metal. Vexara's exoskeleton protected her from the worst of the blast, but the concussion wave sent her sprawling. Across the tunnel floor like a broken toy, her audio sensors rang with feedback. Her visual displays flickered with damage warnings. For the first time in 15 years, someone had actually hurt her. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on whose side you're on. "You're trespassing on my station," came a voice from speakers hidden in the tunnel walls. Rebecca Martinez had tapped into the colony's communication system, turning the entire facility into her personal command center. "I've called security. Leave now and I won't have to kill you." Vexara picked herself up, her armor smoking but intact. Backup systems kicked in, rerouting power around damaged components. Self-repair nanites began working on the worst of the damage. She was hurt, but she was far from finished. Impressive. "Trap human," she admitted, her voice carrying a grudging respect. "But I've killed warriors who trained their entire lives for combat. You are merely a maintenance worker." "I'm a mother," Rebecca replied, her voice echoing from multiple directions. As it bounced through the station's communication array, "And you just threatened my son." The tunnel lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in hellish red shadows that turned the maintenance tunnels into something from a nightmare. Vexara's night vision adapted instantly, but she realized with growing unease that the human had more surprises waiting. From somewhere in the darkness, the high-pitched whine of a fusion cutter charging up, the kind of industrial tool that could slice through starship hull plating like butter. The kind of weapon that could turn even an enhanced alien assassin into component parts. The human was armed. And she knew the station's layout better than any schematic could reveal. For the first time in her career, Vexara felt something she hadn't experienced since her very first kill 15 years ago. Uncertainty. The cold touch of doubt that whispered maybe, just maybe. She had bitten off more than she could chew. She was about to learn that there's a difference between hunting trained soldiers and threatening a mother's child. She was about to discover that some bonds are stronger than any armor, some instincts run deeper than any training, and some forces in the universe are more dangerous than enhanced. Reflexes and alien technology, Rebecca Martinez was about to teach the galaxy's most feared assassin that the most dangerous predator in the known universe isn't the one with the biggest claws or the most advanced weapons. It's the one with the most to lose. And speaking of forces that compound over time, if you think a mother's protective instincts are powerful, wait until you see what happens when small daily actions build momentum. Check out our next video about the incredible power of compounding to discover how this principle can transform your entire life, just like Rebecca's preparation transformed her from prey into predator. The hunter had just awakened something that no amount of alien technology could prepare her for. Rebecca Martinez moved through the blood-red emergency lighting like she owned every square inch of those maintenance tunnels because she did. For 3 years she had crawled through these corridors, repaired these systems, and kept 15. 1,000 souls alive in the void between stars. Every pipe, every junction, every access panel was burned into her memory like a map of her own body. She knew which conduits carried power and which carried water. She knew which sections could be sealed off and which ones connected to the main life support systems. She knew exactly how to turn her workplace into a weapon. And right now, that knowledge was the only thing standing between her son and a professional killer. Jake was safe in the sealed emergency shelter near the reactor. Cora radiation-proof. Bunker designed to protect technicians during plasma containment failures. The alien assassin would never find him there, not unless she tore apart half the station looking, which gave Rebecca exactly what she needed. Time to focus on the immediate threat without worrying about her son's safety. Here's something they don't teach you in parenting classes. There comes a moment when every mother discovers she's capable of things she never imagined. Things that would terrify her under normal circumstances. Things that become not just possible, but inevitable when someone threatens her child. Rebecca had never killed before. The fusion cutter in her hands was designed to slice through metal bulkheads and starship hull plating, not living tissue. It was a tool of creation, meant to build and repair, to keep civilization functioning in the hostile environment of space. But as she thought about Jake cowering in that shelter, alone and afraid, something primal awakened in her chest. A fury that transcended species, transcended civilization, transcended every rule of polite society. It was the rage of a mammal protecting her offspring, older than language, older than technology, older than the stars themselves. You made a mistake coming here, she spoke into her cum unit, her voice broadcasting through the tunnel's speaker system with cold authority. This is my home, my territory, my son. The alien's response came from somewhere close, by too close for comfort. Your emotional attachments make you weak, human. I have eliminated targets who cared for nothing but their own survival. You fight for another, which means you will make errors. Rebecca smiled grimly in the crimson darkness. The alien understood tactics and training, weapons and warfare, but she had no concept of what drove a human mother. No understanding of the force she had just unleashed. You're right, Rebecca said, her voice carrying through the tunnels like a promise of violence. I do fight for someone else. That's exactly what makes me dangerous. She triggered the atmospheric controls, flooding the tunnel section with inert nitrogen gas. The alien's breathing apparatus would filter out toxins. These professional killers always came prepared for chemical warfare, but the sudden change in air pressure would interfere with her enhanced senses, creating pockets of density variation that would scatter her thermal imaging and disrupt her targeting systems. Through the artificial fog, Rebecca caught the telltale shimmer of a cloaking field. The alien thought she was invisible, but Rebecca had spent years working with electromagnetic equipment. She knew how energy fields interacted with atmospheric particles, how they bent light in predictable patterns. She raised the fusion, cutter and fired. The beam sliced through the air where she estimated the alien's center mass would be, a lance of contained plasma hot enough to melt through starship armor. She was rewarded with a shriek of pain that echoed through the tunnels, sound like breaking glass mixed with a scream of tortured metal. The cloaking field flickered and died like a broken hologram. Vexara stood 15 feet away, her left arm hanging useless at her side, dark purple blood seeping through cracks in her crimson exoskeleton. For the first time since entering the station, the galaxy's most feared assassin looked vulnerable. But wounded predators are often the most dangerous. You cannot hide forever, Vexara snarled, raising her own weapon with her good arm. The energy rifle hummed with barely contained power, its barrel glowing with the promise of instant death. I have backup systems, redundant organs, enhanced reflexes. You are only human. Only human. Rebecca stepped out of the shadows, her fusion cutter glowing white-hot in the emergency lighting. You have no idea what that means. Think about that phrase for a moment. Only human. as if being human was somehow a limitation, as if the species that had conquered space, terraformed dead worlds, and built civilizations among the stars was somehow weak. They faced each other across the narrow tunnel, predator and prey. And Mother alien technology against human determination? The assassin had superior reflexes, enhanced senses, and weapons designed for killing. Rebecca had something else entirely, the absolute certainty that failure was not an option. As she looked into Vexara's compound eyes, Rebecca saw something that filled her with savage satisfaction. For the first time in the alien's career, those eyes held an emotion she had never expected to see: fear. The assassin was beginning to understand that she wasn't facing just another target. She was confronting a force of nature that no amount of training could prepare her for. She was learning that some bonds are stronger than any armor, some instincts run deeper than any programming, and some motivations are more powerful than any weapon. Vexara is about to discover that the most dangerous creature in the known universe isn't the one with the biggest claws or the most advanced technology. It's the one fighting for something more precious than her, its own life. It's a human mother protecting her child. And that realization was about to change everything. The standoff lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then both warriors moved at once, and the maintenance tunnels of Titan's Edge became the stage for a battle that would echo through galactic history. Just like Rebecca's determination compounded into unstoppable force, small actions in your own life can build incredible momentum over time. If you want to understand how this principle can transform your future, check out our next video about the amazing power of compounding, where tiny changes create massive results. 3 seconds. That's all it took to change the course of galactic history. 3 heartbeats between life and death, between predator and prey, between the galaxy's most feared assassin and a mother who had run out of patience. The standoff in those blood-red maintenance tunnels felt like an eternity, but time has a funny way of compressing when everything you love hangs in the balance. Then both warriors moved at once. Vexara's energy rifle erupted with coherent light, a beam of pure destruction that could vaporize human tissue in milliseconds. But Rebecca was already diving behind a massive coolant pipe, her body moving with the fluid grace of someone who had spent 3 years navigating these cramped spaces. The alien's shot scorched the tunnel wall where she had been standing, leaving a smoking crater in the reinforced metal that glowed like a miniature sun. Rebecca rolled to her feet and triggered the fusion cutter in one fluid motion. The industrial tool had never been designed as a weapon, but in her hands, it became something far more dangerous than any military rifle. She sent a lance of superheated plasma toward the assassin, a beam hot enough to slice through starship armor like tissue paper. Here's where 15 years of professional killing should have made all the difference. Here's where enhanced reflexes and alien technology should have. It's guaranteed victory, but physics doesn't care about your reputation, Vexara. It's enhanced. Reflexes did save her life barely. She twisted away from the plasma beam with inhuman speed, her body moving in ways that would have shattered human bones. But she wasn't quite fast enough. The plasma seared across her shoulder, melting through her exoskeleton like a hot knife through butter. The scream that tore from her throat was unlike anything Rebecca had ever heard, a sound like breaking glass mixed with the shriek of tortured metal. Purple blood, almost black in the emergency lighting, began seeping through the cracks in her armor. You feel that? Rebecca advanced, her weapon steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. That's pain. That's what you were going to do to my son. The alien tried to bring her rifle to bear, her movements sluggish from shock and injury. But Rebecca had spent 3 years studying every schematic, every blueprint, every structural detail of this station. She knew exactly where to hit. To bring down 2 tons of support structure. The fusion cutter's beam sliced through the primary support strut above Vexara's head. What happened next was pure physics in action. 2 tons of metal and machinery crashed, down like the fist of an angry god. The assassin's reflexes were superhuman, her reaction time measured in microseconds rather than milliseconds. But even superhuman reflexes can't argue with Newton's laws of motion. She managed to avoid being completely crushed, but the impact sent her sprawling across the tunnel floor like a broken doll. Her energy rifle skittered away into the darkness, its power cells sparking as they scattered across the metal grating. Rebecca stood over the fallen predator, her fusion cutter trained on the alien's head. In the crimson emergency lighting, she looked like an avenging angel, or maybe something darker, something primal that civilization had tried to tame but never quite managed to eliminate. 94 kills, she said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. That's your record, right? You want to know what mine is? Vexara's mandibles clicked weakly, her compound eyes struggling to focus. What? 0? I've never killed anything in my life, never even hurt another living being. I won't even step on insects if I can help it. She paused, letting that sink in. The galaxy's most feared assassin had just been defeated by someone who had never committed an act of violence in her entire life. But you threatened my son, Rebecca continued, and now her voice carried something that made even a professional killer flinch. You came to my home, my territory, and you threatened the most important thing in my universe. Ever wonder what separates humans from every other species in the galaxy? It's not intelligence. Plenty of aliens are smarter. Not technology. We borrowed most of that from others. It's this, the absolute, uncompromising love we have for our children. Then, not do it, Vexara whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of damaged machinery. Complete your first kill. Add me to your record. Rebecca looked down at the broken assassin, and something shifted in her expression. The fury that had driven her through the tunnels was still there. But it was tempered now by something else, understanding, maybe even pity. No, she said simply. You're going to live with this. You're going to remember the day you learned that some bonds are stronger than any weapon, some forces more powerful than any technology. She reached for her cum unit with one hand, while keeping the fusion cutter trained on Vexara with the other. Hey, this is Rebecca Martinez. I have an intruder in custody in Maintenance Tunnel 7. She needs medical attention. As security teams rushed through the station corridors toward their location, Vexara stared up at the human who had defeated her. Her enhanced mind, designed for tactical analysis and threat assessment, struggled to process what had just happened. Why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why spare me? I came here to kill you and your offspring. I would have felt no remorse, no hesitation. Rebecca knelt beside the alien, her anger finally giving way to something that might have been compassion. Because that's what makes us human. We protect what we love, but we don't become monsters doing it. We choose to be better, even when we have every reason not to be. The last thing Vexara saw before the medical team arrived was Rebecca Martinez. Walking away, heading back through the tunnels to reunite with her son, the galaxy's most feared assassin had been defeated not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by something no scanner could detect, no weapon could measure: a mother's love. That night changed everything. Rebecca had faced down death itself and won, not through violence, but through the sheer force of will that drives every parent to protect their child. And if you think that kind of determination is powerful, wait until you see what happens when small, consistent actions compound over time. Just like Rebecca's knowledge of the station saved her life, your daily choices can create incredible results. Check out our next video about the amazing power of compounding to discover how this principle can transform your entire future.